This episode of The Nocturnist is sponsored by Claimable. Every year, insurers deny over 850 million claims in the United States. Fewer than 1% are ever appealed. Claimable exists to change that, with an online platform that helps patients overturn unjust denials and restore access to the care they need. With Claimable's easy-to-use appeal builder, patients create and submit personalized, expert-backed appeals, combining clinical, policy, and legal evidence into powerful coverage arguments. If you or someone you know has ever lost access to a medication because of an insurance denial, Claimable was built for that moment. To learn more and explore how Claimable works with partners in healthcare to expand access, visit getclaimable.com.
At The Nocturnist, we are careful to ensure that all stories comply with healthcare privacy laws. Details may have been changed to ensure patient confidentiality. All views expressed are those of the person speaking and not their employer.
This is The Nocturnist. I'm Emily Silverman. Today we're bringing you a special crossover episode with Remo Health, a company that provides world-class interdisciplinary care to people living with dementia and their families. The guest is musician Kaylee Glenn, a young woman who founded a nonprofit, the Day by Day Project, which uses music to transform dementia care. Kaylee is a really amazing young person, and I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. Here it is. I'm Dr. Emily Silverman, and welcome to Talking Dementia with Remo Health. Join us as we explore the latest advances, insights, and strategies that help empower those living with dementia and the families that support them. Each episode, we sit down with leading experts, from physicians and researchers to policymakers and clinicians, to provide you with the resources needed to navigate this complex disease. I'm Dr. Emily Silverman, and you're listening to Remo. Today, we're speaking with Kaylee Glenn. Kaylee is the founder and president of the Day by Day Project, a nonprofit dedicated to transforming dementia care through the power of music. Inspired at the age of 10 when she first played violin in a memory care facility, Kaylee launched the organization, originally called the Dementia Project, as a teenager. With a background in neuroscience, she has developed programs like the Memory Disco, which bring joy, connection, and improved quality of life to individuals living with dementia. Through her leadership, the Day by Day Project has engaged communities, trained volunteers, and reimagined music as a tool for care, earning national recognition for its innovative approach. Kaylee, thank you so much for coming onto Remo.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So Kaylee, tell us about your love of music. When and how did that begin, and what role has music played in your own life since you were young?
Music for me has been a huge part of my life. So I like to say, and my parents like to say, that I fell in love with music when I was 5 years old. It started when I went to a teddy bear concert. And a teddy bear concert was something that young people went to. They had tea, they danced around, and there was an orchestra playing at this concert. And my parents said that I sat right in front of the first violinist and just watched him the whole time. Afterwards, he let me hold his violin. And when I was 5 years old, I started taking lessons and really falling in love with the instrument. And violin from that point on became a huge part of my life. I fell in love with the instrument as like a personal practice and something for me. But for the life of me, I could not play in front of other people. I had crippling stage fright. And that's kind of where I started playing violin in memory care centers to kind of practice that stage fright.
Because if you mess up, then it doesn't matter because they may not remember.
Right, exactly.
So how did you get that idea? Maybe I'll practice in this super low stakes environment where I'm just bringing some joy to people and they don't care if I'm, practicing the perfect violin stroke or something like that.
As soon as I started having trouble playing in front of other people, my mom invited me to play at the memory care center that she worked at. And From that first time playing, I had an incredible experience. So I was playing my simple pieces as a 10-year-old. And as I started to play, the woman in front of me actually began to vocalize. And I wasn't quite sure what was happening at first, but afterwards, a nurse approached me and she explained that that woman had been nonverbal for 4 months and she was a former opera singer trying to sing along. And I continued to go back and play with this woman until she passed a few months later. But I feel like that really helped me realize that music was something that I could use to connect with other people and also kind of practice through that stage fright.
Wow. What was it like to come back again and again and play with this woman who had been an opera singer and couldn't really sing anymore, but was still connecting with you and connecting with your music? Like, what was that relationship like as such a young person? I mean, how old were you at that time?
I was 10 years old and it was profound. I just remember feeling, honestly, this really strong sense of peace of like, this is it. Like, this is what I should be doing. And something about being able to connect with someone that had trouble connecting with others and that was often kind of pushed to the side. It really just warmed my heart and made me want to keep coming back.
So then you decided to formalize this and start an organization. So tell us about that.
Yes. So I started the Day by Day Project as a student organization when I was 14 years old. And I like to take all the credit for it, but I really did have a big push at my high school. There was an organization called Student Organized Service, and this encouraged young children, students, to formalize groups that brought service into the community. And so I began just bringing my orchestra into different memory care centers and recreating this experience through music. By doing this, I was able to see that different things that I would do would have different responses. So, like, I would play things a certain way and someone's feet would start tapping or they would start singing along. And I became completely obsessed with this idea that we had control over the moments of connection that we could create. We'd walk into a room and we'd typically see, glazed over eyes or starry faces. And within 10, 15 minutes, that entire room transformed. And so that was kind of like the start of my hyperfixation for this work.
So you said you started to have a sense for what types of songs or what types of musical phrases would induce certain reactions in people. And I just think that's so fascinating and was wondering if you could take us a little deeper into that. Like, what do people like?
Yeah, absolutely. And so from that experience, what I really started to see was I could put my violin down and I could hold hands with someone and their eyes would open up a little wider. Or I could tap the rhythm on their knee and they would start tapping their feet. And so there were these interpersonal connections and things that I could do that had a physiological response. And a lot of that started to develop as I became really interested in this. I had the honor of working with a neurologist. Her name is Dr. Rana Schatz. She's the head neurologist at the University of Cincinnati, director of memory care. And she sat down with me, God bless her, when I was 14 years old. And she told me so much about dementia and where I was. And it really helped me create this foundation for this work. But the biggest thing she told me was these ideas of engagement. So there were 3 pillars that she shared with me: rhythmic engagement, physical touch, and community engagement. Taken independently, each of these areas were a great way to connect with someone living with dementia. But we worked together from that point on, so over 10 years, to create a musical engagement program that encompassed all 3 of these engagement pillars simultaneously. And the idea was shifting from a passive listening response to an active listening response. So that was kind of my first research project, this trial and error with my organization and finding the different ways that we can incorporate these pillars of engagement. And the result now is just something incredible.
So, how did the organization grow? You're 14. You used this student resource to start an organization. And then you said it's been 10 years. So, take us through the life of the organization and the milestones and how did it grow over time?
when I started it as a volunteer organization, bringing my orchestra into different memory care communities, that immediately started gaining a lot of traction. Because when we started stepping outside of just music and bringing volunteers in that didn't play a musical instrument to do those engagement techniques, we were kind of decreasing and lowering the barriers for anyone to get involved with this work. And so by the time I graduated high school, I had 5 or 6 high schools that I was working with on this project. And then I went to study neuroscience at Ohio State, and I started this organization there as a club at Ohio State. And that was to bring neuroscience students, pre-med students, pre-health students into this field to learn more about it. And so at that point, I was bringing in live musicians along with those pre-med students, those neuroscience students that were doing the engagement techniques. And that really took off because this was a clinical volunteering experience that students enjoy to do every week. But the real growth happened when COVID-19 kind of took place. So for a long time, no one was really entering nursing homes. And that was really hard because I think all of us could see that the people who needed engagement most were the residents in those communities. And so when we were able to get a small number of our organization vaccinated, we were so excited to go into these communities, but a lot of us didn't play musical instruments. And so at that point, we became the first in the nation to use silent disco technology as this temporary replacement for live musicians. And if you're not familiar, a silent disco is an experience where an unlimited amount of headphones are connected to one music source so that everybody is listening to the same music at the same time through headphones. That became this like new growth of what we were doing. And we had a lot of fun with that.
So you said you don't even need a musical instrument. Before the silent disco, was it more just sitting with someone and tapping and just rhythm keeping just without an instrument? Or how did that work?
So we never had a point in our journey where we didn't have live music or the silent disco. Um, it was kind of like a seamless transition into, we knew we were going into these communities. We needed a way to engage with them. And that's when, we became the first to pilot this new program.
Will a group of people come into a care facility, put headphones on the people, hit the switch for the music to start, and then what happens?
Exactly. Okay. So let me run through the first time that we tried this out because there was a lot of uncertainty. And I think the biggest question, even among our volunteers, was, okay, why are we doing this? Like, why not just play the music out loud? The whole idea of the silent disco came because at my high school after prom, we had a silent disco. And it just kept coming up in my head of like, this would be really cool to try. So the first event, we went into the community. We had our normal engagement program. And so when we would bring live musicians in, we would still have volunteers that would work on the physical touch, rhythmic engagement, and community engagement. That didn't change. So we put everyone in a circle and we passed out headphones. We played a special playlist that I created. And all of a sudden, within 30 seconds, people were standing up and dancing. We had 96-year-olds literally dropping it like it was hot. It became this like huge dance party. And I was sitting there. I was like, what is going on? Again, why is this different than playing the music out loud? Why is this so much more engaging than what we had spent so much time perfecting? And we kind of like broke it down and we have 3 reasons. The first is auditory needs. So every headphone's volume adjusts independently, making sure that even those that are hard of hearing could fully engage with that program. And that is a huge barrier of engagement in senior living. It's like if you can't hear what's going on, you can't engage with it. And the second was attention. Similarly, as we age, and especially if we have dementia, our attention span is getting really, really small. And so now we were able to engage 100% of whatever attention span is available and orient it to the music. And the last reason why it was so engaging is this concept of accessibility. We, as 18-year-old, 19-year-old students, could bring the power of music into any place at any time by anyone, regardless of if we played a musical instrument or not. And this kind of opened up the door for, what could this look like in dementia care?
How do you choose the songs?
That's a great question. So typically, we choose songs that were popular between the ages of 10 and 30 of a person. And so whether or not you have dementia, between those ages our emotions are heightened, our brain is developing. There's something about that age range that lets things really stick, especially musically. In addition, Dr. Rana Schatz, one of the first things she told me was, as we're going through dementia, she had me picture writing down every day of my life in a diary. And when you're diagnosed with dementia and when you see those symptoms, what dementia does is it starts pulling out pages from the most recent pages onward. And so a lot of people are actually living between the ages of 10 or 30. And so it makes sense for us to play those kinds of music. And then since we're oriented in a group space, our goal is actually not to make a personal, intimate connection with every single song for every single person, because that's nearly impossible with all these different experiences and age ranges. Our goal is for every person to engage intimately with maybe every third song. And in between there, they're dancing, they're using our engagement techniques, and we're creating this social environment that is really helpful for the brain.
The engagement techniques, how do you structure the dance party? Is it just a free-for-all, or do you actually direct people what to do?
So how it usually starts is when we pass out headphones, everyone's eyes light up and they're like, oh, this is something new. That's when our volunteers go around and they do the engagement techniques. And we've made this program replicable to different communities as well. And so in that instance, the activity director, the nurse's aide, whoever it is, will go around and start doing our engagement techniques. So we have rhythmic engagement techniques. One of them is through our several different maraca shaking techniques. By first rhythmically engaging with a person, that's like their first connection with music. And so musical memories are encoded rhythmically in the brain. And so you're kind of untapping those. And then we get into physical touch and community engagement. So we have these structured techniques that as providers, we do. But what we begin to see is that residents will start to do them with each other. They'll pick up on them. And so one care partner in a community can engage up to 30 residents at a single time very easily with this program.
And besides the maracas, like what would physical touch be? Would it be like tapping on their shoulder or something like that?
Yeah, so tapping on the shoulder, we have focuses on physical touch used for connection or physical touch used for rhythmic connection. Same thing with community engagement. And so that's something that we train care partners on as soon as they're interested in the program. We go through a training so that they have these tools in their toolkit.
Wow. So how many care facilities have you personally walked into and done this with?
Personally, probably over 100.
Wow.
But every student organization that we have, so one pillar of our organization is this intergenerational connection. And every student organization, we actually encourage them to choose one or two communities to go to every week. That way they can start to get to know the residents. And a big goal of ours is to transform stigma. You know, we have young people going into communities and they walk away and they're like, this is my favorite part of the week. And I never thought in high school people would say that to me. I was pulling teeth to get people to go into nursing homes, but it's a whole different environment of, oh, actually, this is a really fun place to be, kind of shifting that frame on aging a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to ask, some young people have old souls and they love hanging out with old people and they just feel really comfortable in that space. But a lot of people who are young don't necessarily like hanging out with older people, or it makes them uncomfortable, or for whatever reason, or they might just think it's boring or that it's not cool or whatever. So how do you get this work to be fun and cool? Like, do you find that young people actually are starting to change the way that they think about older people and aging?
Absolutely. So with everything, I think education is the first step. I actually don't believe that young people's stigma on older adults is rooted in negativity. I think it's rooted kind of in ignorance and not knowing what to do or what to say. And with this approach, this memory disco approach, what we're taking away is those barriers of language, of knowing what to say. Like every single thing that is between a young person and older person that feels uncomfortable is literally removed. And we replace them with these techniques and guide young people. And hey, if you do this, you can lock eyes with them and have a connecting experience. And when they experience that, it is I mean, tears are flowing. There's nothing like it. And so when they walk away, I think it's this moment of, yeah, that was completely different than what I thought. And one of the things that we love as an organization and that I love as a person is oxymorons. And so exactly, like, we're making it cool to go into nursing homes. We're making students literally hang out. Like, they're on their Saturdays from 2 to 4 p.m. They're going and dancing with older adults, most of which have advanced dementia. And they're like writing about it and posting about it on Instagram.
Wow. I mean, I think it's clear what the older folks get out of it. They get a shock of entertainment. They get exposure to young people. They get to dance and laugh and have fun. Often we imagine nursing homes being these really sort of sad, lonely places. So it's clear why a silent disco would be fun for them. What do you find that the young people are getting out of it? Like when they post on Instagram, what's in it for them, or like how are they growing, or what are they benefiting?
So after most sessions, we come together and we debrief. And so one of the biggest things that we talk about is just using this as a learning experience. I will say, I think the first thing that they get out of it is the benefits of music. Every single person in that experience is getting movement, they're dancing, they're listening to music together, and they're connecting. And that is healthy for every single person. I think it is like a dopamine boost.
Totally.
Like, they're coming back. And so I think like that is the first reason, is this really positive association. But then when we dive into it a little deeper, we notice that the people that are encouraged to be a part of this organization typically know a family member that had dementia. This is really personal for them. One of the things that we started doing for every student organization is, and so when I was running it, and I passed it on. So now there's another leader, like at Ohio State. His name is Andrew Hartman. He's incredible. He has multiple family members that had dementia. And so he runs that organization at Ohio State. And it's a really great leadership opportunity for students to have. But I think one of the biggest things is we're able to create this intertwined community of students that all are connected with the profound impact of dementia, whether they're experiencing it for the first time or they have someone that they loved. And that intimate connection that we all share is like unlike anything else. So we're building friendships as well.
Do you have any stories or anecdotes from this work that you think would be worth sharing? You talked about being 10 and going with the violin and playing the violin, and the woman vocalizing and making noises and then realizing she was an opera singer, and how powerful that was. Any stories or examples of kind of similar moments from your organization, either unexpected connections, or maybe there was something funny that happened or anything like that?
Absolutely. The first person that comes to my mind is a man named Bruce. And Bruce really changed the framework of our organization from this fun, lively volunteer experience to expanding it to really transform dementia care within communities. So Bruce was a music man, tried and true. He played in multiple bands. He was a composer, a conductor. He played like the guitar. Like, we've seen pictures of Bruce from his younger days, and he's just like this amazing, vibrant person. But when I got to know Bruce, he was sitting in the corner of his memory care center, and he could not vocalize with anyone. He could not communicate. He was the person where when young people come into communities, they're like, oh, like, don't worry about him, because he was hard to connect with. And when we would play live music for Bruce, he couldn't seem to have the attention or the focus to really engage with it. And so he was also the kind of person that people would say, like, oh, he doesn't like activities, or like anyway, Bruce was completely withdrawn. And when we would do this program for him, we would pass out headphones and we would put them on him, kind of this moment of like, if he doesn't like it, that's okay, but maybe he will. And the first time we did this, we put headphones on him and we played Frank Sinatra. And he stood up, he lifted both his hands to the sky, and he started conducting again. His eyes like lit up, and you could see that he was remembering something in his head. Tears started flowing. And we would go over for Bruce and we would put our hands on him, and he would start dancing with us. And so I never knew Bruce before he had dementia, but after multiple of these occurrences, we were able to bring his loved ones in. So like his wife, his children, we were all dancing with Bruce. And For me, Bruce was an excellent example that even in the latest stages of dementia, when you think that you can no longer recognize a person, they're still there. We just need to find the right way to connect with them. And that was through music. And like moving past that, I walked away from that first experience with Bruce and just had this nagging feeling like this needs to be everywhere. Like this is so easy. Anyone can do it. Like there's no reason that this shouldn't be in every single community, serving every single purpose. And that became like the beginning of our nonprofit journey.
You can imagine if someone gave Bruce a pill and then he stood up and did that, the company that made that pill would get rich.
Everyone would have that pill.
Right.
And that's something I've been having trouble coping with and understanding as I were getting into this work of like, we've done research. Like Ohio State has done research on this program. We have incredible results. Like I have some here in talking about reducing challenging behaviors. So reducing challenging behaviors is a thing that a lot of medications are trying to do. And 90% of care partners observed enhanced mood and behavior during the memory disco activity. And 95% noted improved mood and behavior 4 to 6 hours after the activity. So we're talking about like, okay, if that was a pill, everyone would do it. And I think that is where this passion of wanting this to be everywhere comes from.
You chose to go to school and study neuroscience. Tell us what you know about how music interacts with the brain. Like, music is medicine. How does that work?
So when we listen to music, our whole brain becomes activated in a really unique way. Like our brain's kind of segmented into all of these different specialized functions, but music goes through all of them and organizes them together. And so for all of us, music promotes memory, movement, motivation, and making friends. And so when we think about memory, have you ever been in a car when a familiar song comes on and it takes you, right back to a different time and place when all of these emotions and memories start flooding in? That's because our emotional memories are rooted rhythmically in our brain. And so that's something we all have. A lot of our musical memories help us remember our ABCs or nursery rhymes or our first song at our wedding. We can't control it. It's just a part of our life. But movement, we go to the gym, we listen to music, motivation. If you're studying or working or even getting out of bed, music helps with that. And then making friends. How many of us have gone to a concert or listened to an orchestra together and you become connected with those individuals that you're surrounded by? And so for all of us, music is so incredibly helpful. And that is the same thing for people living with dementia. One of the most profound things about this work, and when I learned this, I had chills go through my whole body, is that those musical memories that help us remember things like our ABCs, our nursery rhymes, our core memories that are tied to music, those are preserved throughout dementia. So even when someone's cognition, language, movement decline, those people will still be able to engage with those musical memories. And knowing that is the root of what this organization is. We believe this needs to be at the forefront of dementia care.
I'm almost 40, and sometimes I'll have the experience where I'm walking down the street and a song will pop into my head, and it'll be like a commercial jingle that was on TV a lot when I was 10, and it'll just pop into my head. Sometimes it's in a pleasant way if it's like an old pop hit or something like that, or a top 40 song, but sometimes it's like they call them earworms. Like you can't get them out of your head 30 years later. You still can't get them out of your head. And so I think, positive or negative, it just goes to show how persistent those musical memories can be in your brain. And the other anecdote I wanted to share is I remember years ago watching a video about Gabrielle Giffords. She was a United States representative who was sadly shot at a mass shooting, and she was shot in the head and she survived. And she's still alive. And I remember watching a video of her rehabilitation because the bullet had gone through the part of her brain that controls language. And she was trying to learn how to speak again. And when she would try to speak, the speech wouldn't come. But then she had a speech therapist who was sitting across from her with a guitar, and they would sing a song and she could sing. Like she could sing, but she could not speak. And so as they were rehabilitating her speech, they used music as the on ramp to getting the language back online. And so I just wanted to share those two examples, one personal and one just something I saw about music in the brain. I don't know if that resonates with you at all.
I love that. And it does absolutely resonate with me. It kind of, it piques your interest of there must be a different pathway. Like there's something magical that's happening with music and the way that it can elicit motor functions or language functions that we think aren't there. And seeing that day after day it's just extraordinary.
What are some of the challenges that you have faced in getting this type of therapy into spaces where elders are? Like you said, it's almost so effective that it's kind of unbelievable. Like we said, if a pill were this effective, it would make all the news headlines. So, what are the challenges or barriers to getting this type of healing and this type of joy and this type of connection and this type of medicine into spaces where people with dementia are residing?
That is a really great question. And it's something that I've had to navigate throughout everything that we've been doing. And first, thinking about how we were able and how we're trying to get this into communities. After that moment with Bruce of like, this needs to be everywhere, a team of us neuroscience students, neurologists, and leaders in the field got together and we ran a pilot program at a local community in Columbus, Ohio. And that was to study if music could be more than a fun, lively activity, but a tool to enhance the lives of care partners, to give them something that they could use every single day. So we ran interviews. We studied, what is really hard about your job? And things like sundowning came up, or meal times, or movement. And so we were able to design memory disco activities for each one of those things. So we have a sundowning memory disco, an exercise memory disco, a mealtime memory disco. And each one of those things uses research informed techniques to have a specific outcome. Like, for instance, with mealtime, chewing is a rhythmic activity. And so when you're able to tie that to music, you can increase food consumption. Or de-escalation, the idea behind hard behaviors coming from confusion and that leading to agitation, which I, for one, think is a very normal response. If my world were changing, I would definitely be agitated. But if you're able to then transport them to somewhere familiar, we can kind of manage those behaviors a little bit. So each one of these activity guides has been created for communities in a step-by-step fashion, each with their own playlist. And so these activity guides were our aim, in addition to our techniques and the equipment, to replicate this experience. And so that's kind of like our memory disco package that communities can become involved in. And so when we want to bring this into communities, I think our biggest challenge is actually rooted around what you said about if there was a pill for this, everyone would do it. I will say, before anything else, every single person that we've worked with in the aging industry, from activity directors to executive directors, values the power of music so much. It is incredible how people lead with their heart, how compassionate they are, and how much they really care about the people that they're caring for. And that at all is not an obstacle that we've had to overcome. I would say the obstacle comes from budgets and from the attention and the priority that overarching organizations put on pharmaceuticals over natural techniques and things like that. And so that's been something we've had to navigate, of really using research and using these stories and these anecdotes and these opportunities to share the power of music to climb the ladder and become a priority for communities.
Right. Like I imagine health insurance doesn't cover any of these activities. Right.
Exactly. It has to be something that they're prioritizing and that they see a long-term return of investment with.
So, looking ahead, what is next for you and for your work and your organization and your studies? Are you still in school, and where do you see this all going?
Yeah, so I graduated a few years back, and for me, things have been so naturally growing. And I feel really lucky for that. So my original plan was to go to medical school. I did all of the prereqs, put in my application and everything. But at the time of deciding to go, we actually had an angel donor give us money to kind of be like, hey, why don't you do this? And I was like, yes, we need to do this. This is so important. And since then, it's just been the most incredible journey to be on. And so what's next? We completed our first research pilot through Ohio State a few months back. And right now we're just using some of that data that follows people from managing behaviors to de-escalation to moments of connection and making that the forefront of care, like really being like, this is not just this joyful activity. This is a tool. This has actionable results and changing people's mindset on that. And trying to get into other communities and train them so that this can be an everyday part of care. And with my studies, I have a couple of things on the horizon that I'm thinking about going back to school for, but it all comes after I feel like the organization is in an amazing place.
There's not a lot of people who can say that they started something like this when they were 10 or when they're 14. You really have built something, and that's incredible. So I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you've done to make the world a better place. And thank you also for coming onto Remo to chat with us. Really appreciate this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me and highlighting some of the things that we're doing.
I have been speaking with Kaylee Glenn, founder and president of the Day by Day Project. Thanks again, Kaylee.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. For more expert guidance on managing dementia, visit www.remo.health/learn. This episode of The Nocturnist was produced by me and producer and head of story development, Molly Rose Williams. Our executive producer is Allie Block, and Ashley Pettit is our program director. Original theme music was composed by Yosef Monroe, with additional music from Blue Dot Sessions. The Nocturnist is made possible by listeners like you. If you enjoy what you hear and you want to support our work, consider subscribing to The Nocturnist Plus. You'll get access to The Nocturnist After Hours, our monthly bonus series featuring original conversations from our team, along with merch discounts and a full archive of episodes all in one place. Subscriptions start at just $10 a month. Learn more at thenocturnist.org/plus or through the link in the description. Thank you for listening and being part of this community. Until next time, I'm your host, Emily Silverman.